than like, but I think a lot of us, I mean, not how you feel, it's hard to give up the performance. Like the performance becomes so habitual, especially with social media. I was talking about this with my lady last night. Like we are presenting something to the world on social media, and then we become in some way identified with it. It becomes more real almost than the real world. Are you, I mean, because you're excellent on social media, I notice. How do you think about that?
I feel I have been absolutely 100% myself for the past 4.5 years. And that's why everything that I do is so easy to me. And it's so fun to me, is because I'm showing people the real me. And everything that I post on social media and all that, it's me going about my actual life. And I try and lead by example as much as I can with the grounding stuff. But as far as the personality thing, like that's all me. Nothing really changes if you see me on Instagram or if you see me in real life and real life situations. So that's it makes everything so easy. I can't imagine how hard it would be to put on a facade for social media, and then someone meets you in real life and they're just like, you're not like how you present yourself on social media. So
Right.
I don't want to be that. I don't want to be that person. So.
Yeah. I mean, you are. I think that's why you have I mean, you got a lot of followers. I mean, since I've been following you the last 4 years, I think you were kind of a small account, maybe 5,000 when I started following you. Now you're at 8,500 or 85,000.
Got up there. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're having an impact.
It's and it's been a very beautiful process, because I have people message me every single day. They're just like, I got into grounding because of you, and it's helped me in whatever's been plaguing me the last few years, and that's a good feeling. It brings a lot of meaning to what I do, and I also get to have fun with it, because I get to put my personality into it. And I think people, when they see a lot of businesses, it kind of becomes robotic to them. They see just the business side of things, but I like to see uniqueness and personality put into things, and so that's what I try and do with what I do.
Well, maybe we should let's go back and you can talk a little bit about you're the Grounded Athlete. That's your brand, and you make these Gaia sandals, which I've had for years and which I love. They're amazing. You're an athlete, obviously, a 400-meter runner, which is the toughest.
It's a man's race. That's what they like to call it.
Yeah. Race, man.
It's tough. Yeah, I just had a race this past Friday, so
Which you won.
I did, yeah. It was a very, very good opener for me. I'm very happy about it. So I think the season will go really well.
What is the season? Like, where are you competing?
So during the winter indoor season, that's from December to the end of February. That's where you're competing indoors. It's a little bit slower because the curves, the tracks are smaller. And so you're dealing with tighter curves. And so you can't maintain your momentum as well. And then from there, you transition to outdoor season. And that's usually, what you see with the Olympics and stuff.
Right.
It's a long season. It's a grueling season, but it's very, very fun.
And you've been training track all your life?
10 years, I would say, seriously. I wasn't that fast growing up. I wasn't, very, very good at sports. So it was kind of weird once I started, picking up this track thing, and I started getting better and better and better at it. And now I ran professionally for a couple of years all around the country. I had an injury, and that took me out. And then I had retired last year. So I said, I'm done with track. I'm tired of, because I had some nagging things with feet and some hamstring stuff. But I had started training with some of my buddies, and I was doing the training, and I was like, I'm still hitting these times like very like easy. So I was like, well, I'll just compete. And so I ended up competing last season, and I was still just as fast as I was when I had left. So I'd taken a year off and then come back with very little training, and I was still running the same times. So like, well, now I have more time because I'm just kind of doing my own thing. So I was like, I'll dedicate more time to this. I'll keep going. So that's where I'm at now.
You enjoy the training?
I love it. Yeah.
Why?
It teaches me a lot about myself, because it's a very painful type of training. 400-meter training is up there with some of the toughest types of training. And when I'm exhausted like that, and those interval reps, I learn what kind of person I am towards the end of those reps. Like, am I going to be the person that gives up when things get really painful, or am I going to keep going? And yeah, the 400, it can tell you a lot about how much pain you can tolerate and keep going.
It's basically a sprint.
Yeah.
I
yeah.
mean, it's a full
It's
out.
a full out sprint. You have to be a little strategic about it, but it's basically a full out sprint. Yes.
Oh, that's so it is. It's the most painful. Of
Yeah,
all
and
the
it doesn't
races.
matter how in shape I am. I could be in the best shape of my life. It's still going to hurt just the same as my first race of the season. So,
Wow. 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 All right. So let's talk about just let's ground the conversation with the ground. How did you get into tell me a little bit about all of this?
yeah. Well, I came from the Lakota culture. I'm Native American, so I've always kind of been in that earth-centric culture my whole life.
What's that mean, earth-centric?
Well, in Lakota culture and in a lot of other, Nakota, Dakota, and all the different tribes that are distributed throughout the country, we hold the earth as very sacred, very healing. And I was always told that as a kid, stay close to the earth. It's healing for your body, for your soul. And I had never really thought about that much as a kid. And then, 20 years later, I go to school, I study physics, I go to undergrad, I go to grad school, and I really start to put things together as far as what's going on when you actually ground. And I had gotten into grounding from track and field, and I was just looking for ways to get better. And I had stumbled upon one podcast that was talking about it, this whole grounding thing, and I was very, very skeptical about it. And I was just like, being barefoot on the earth, that's going to do all these things. And then I started implementing it. I started grounding before I went to bed. I started grounding before I was training, after I was training, in the morning. And I just noticed immediate differences in my energy levels and how I was training, the quality of my training, how well I was recovering. There were so many cool things that were happening. I was like, okay, there's something definitely happening here.
Is it just putting your bare feet on the earth? Is that all grounding is?
Yeah. So what grounding is, very, very simply, is it's just being in electrical contact with the surface of the earth. And that can be done directly or indirectly. So directly, just bare feet on the earth, or indirectly, if you have like a grounding mat, grounding sheets, grounding pillowcases, they have all types of
Those work.
Yeah, they do. And it's very important to, test if you're going to be grounding indoors, you need to be testing your outlets. You need to be testing with a multimeter if these products are actually working, because they can be detrimental if you're not doing those things. But yeah, it can be done indoors, it can be done outdoors. There's a lot of different ways you can do it.
Interesting. So what's the philosophy behind it? Like we're electric?
Yeah. So the body is very conductive. And when we talk about health, we get the nutrition side of things down, we get the exercise things of all that down, but we often forget that we're electrical beings. And when you hear things like homeostasis, you don't really think of the electrical side of things. Our body operates at a very specific voltage, and it needs to maintain this for optimal health. And so when you ground yourself to the earth, that allows your body to be in electrical equilibrium. And that's how it's meant to be, because humans have been, throughout our time here on earth, we've been in electrical contact with the earth, and it's only been in the last 100 years that we've started separating ourselves from the earth through rubber-soled shoes and what have you.
And you've created these grounding sandals. Do they keep you grounded? I mean, there's a thin layer of.
So yeah, being grounded to the earth, it really comes down to, conductors and insulators. In between there, you have semiconductors. But what conductors do is they essentially allow the movement of electrical energy through them more easily than, say, insulators. So an example of a conductor would be copper or silver, which are two of the best conductors in the world. And you have, on the other hand, here, glass and rubber and these different types of polymers that don't allow for the transfer of electrical energy through them. So conductors and insulators, that's a big part of the conversation.
So you made your shoes with conductors or sandals?
Yeah, there are 3 conductors in those sandals. There's leather, there's full grain leather, actually from here in Texas. That's where I source them. And then copper on the bottom of the sandal, and then you have silver sewn into the straps there. So it's 2 of the best conductors in the world.
Wow.
Being used in these.
And you hand make these?
I make every single pair.
Every single pair. How long were you handy growing up, or is that just something you figured out?
When I was on the reservation, I was always doing things with my hands. We didn't have much to do when I lived on the reservation. So I was always doing something, either with my grandpa, who's a chief, and he was a very, very strong man, who was always having us do something physical with our bodies, whether that was, some kind of exercise or just making things. But yeah, and you know, when you look at them, they look very simple, but you know, putting them together, it's like if you were to watch the process, it's just like, wow, there's actually a lot that goes into making these things. So it took me about 3 or 4 months of just throwing things together, and then, you know, it ended up not working. So it like worked 3 hours on this one pair, and it was like, this doesn't work, so I got to throw it out and start over again.
Right.
But eventually, once I had the sandal and I was wearing it, I was like, nice, this is amazing.
You made it for yourself first? Were you
Yeah, I
thinking
made
about
it,
it as
yeah,
a business?
yeah. I made it for myself first. I was like, I need something because I can't always be barefoot. So,
Yeah.
especially in Iowa winters when, you know, the ground gets really cold, especially in the winter. So I was like, get these sandals made and something that can ground me when I can't always be barefoot. And so I started making them for myself. And then I had people start reaching out to me like, hey, can you make these for me? And so from there, kind of the rest is history. 4.5 years later, I'm sending them out all over the world. So
That's got to be satisfying.
yeah, it is. And it's satisfying because not only am I, you know, creating a type of art that I can give somebody, but it's a type of art that's going to help them. And it's going to lead them to this message of grounding. So it's a very beautiful process for me.
So I guess I'm trying to like piece together you have a philosophy.
Mhm.
It sounds like you live by by a code or values, I guess, instilled in your childhood with your tradition in the Lakota way, I guess.
Mhm.
But also you have your own personal philosophy. I sense that you've gone out into the world,
Yeah.
and you figured things out for yourself. And I mean, I'm drawn to you, and people can feel it. That's why you have these followers. What are you about? Like, what are you trying to do, or what is it you're trying to teach, do you think?
Yeah. So this whole grounding thing, it ties together multiple domains or aspects of my life, my spirituality, my culture, and my academic background. So I'm very much science oriented. I studied physics, and that has really allowed me to kind of put these things together for people in a digestible way. But not only is it that science side of things, it's my culture ingrained into that very earth-centric culture.
Uh-huh.
And then on top of that, my spirituality. I'm a Christian. I really believe at the end of the day, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to reconnect people to this earth that they are designed for. They're designed to be in constant contact with the earth's surface. And so it's tying together all these things, and it's a very beautiful thing. And that's why I love waking up every day and being able to do what I do, is because like I'm able to put so many different things into it.
You grew up Christian?
I didn't grow up Christian. No, I grew up in the Lakota ways. They have differing views on spirituality and God and all that. And I didn't come to Christianity until my high school years, and I started attending some after school programs with my friends, and it resonated so much more with me. And I knew right
Jesus.
Jesus, yes,
Yeah.
Jesus.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once you get with Jesus, it's sort of like, it makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. You're raised in Rosebud, on the Rosebud, which is a city on the reservation, which is also Rosebud in Southwest South Dakota. What was that like?
Well, you've been to Rosebud.
I've been to Rosebud.
Been to Rosebud. That was very interesting to find out that you were going out there. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But as you know, on the Rosebud Reservation, there's not a lot out there, especially as far as opportunity.
Well, not just there's not opportunity, it's also there's a lot of poverty and there's a lot of drug use. Yeah. So it's easy to get pulled into something very destructive, but you managed to avoid that.
Yeah, and I have my mom to thank for that. But growing up there, a lot of my cousins, a lot of my family members had gotten involved with, gangs and drugs and, issues with the police there, and, a lot of them ended up shot. And so I wanted to be cool, like my cousins and all that. And so I was probably going to go down that road if I stayed there. But my mom had taken us off the reservation towards the end of my middle school years, so like 8th grade, and I ended up in Iowa, and that's where I finished out my.
Were your mom and dad together?
Yeah.
And you both
Yep,
moved?
we all moved to Iowa.
Your mom saw the writing on the wall?
Yeah, I think
Your mom is native?
she is. Yeah,
Both your mom and father?
my dad isn't. My mom is.
Oh, I
That's
see.
where I get my
So you're half.
yes.
Right. Okay. Because I heard you say in a podcast, like it's like you were too white for the
Yeah, and
natives and too native for the whites.
that was very much a thing.
Yeah, I
didn't
can
fit in.
see that. It's hard to put you in a category.
Yeah, I didn't fit in wherever I was. I got to Iowa, and I'm just like, who is this guy? He looks different than us. And on the reservation, I didn't look like them either. So it made it hard to make friends and feel like I fit in.
Right. You are an oddity in some way.
I enjoy it now, though. I
Yeah.
enjoy being my own kind of unique person.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That must have been a journey for you to sort of own yourself?
Yeah, I'd gone through such a long period of insecurity just because of that. I always felt like very, very different because, I didn't look like everybody else and I didn't act like everybody else because, I had spent so much time on the reservation and then going to, this small school in Iowa. Everything was just kind of all over the place as far as, figuring out who I am.
Brothers and sisters?
I do. I have 3 younger sisters. And
Oh, wow.
a younger brother. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
But yeah, and over the years, that insecurity just kind of went away. Especially now, I love the person that I've become. So
How did you do that? How did you get over it?
I don't know if there was a specific moment that I think it was just kind of it just happened over a long period of time. I just stopped caring. I stopped and
What other people think?
yeah, what other people think, and especially now. I mean, people always like they compliment me on like my marketing and all that, and I don't know anything about marketing, but I get my personality and all that ingrained with it, but it really pays off to be kind of your own unique person when you're doing something like what I'm doing or what you're doing.
Yeah.
And people I think are drawn to that. So, but yeah, I'm glad that I stopped caring what people think, and that's something that I think just changing settings drastically did for me. It just made me very, very insecure about who I was.
Sounds like at some point you realized what was happening.
Yeah.
And you made a decision that you were just going to stop doing that anymore.
Well, when I realized that, whenever I did realize that, I can't think of I think it just happened over a long period of time. But when I did come to that realization, I had started making friends so much easier. Life just became so much easier. People were drawn to me because when you're in that insecure state, you'll do things to make people like you.
Right. You're seeking validation.
Yeah. So, and now I don't do that anymore, especially like with my social media pages. I don't want anybody to like me. Like if I don't want like any people to follow me if they don't like, because my personality is very much ingrained in that. I think you've seen that.
Yeah.
So, I don't feel that need for people to like me anymore. That's been very liberating.
That must be. Yeah. There's a real freedom to that. And I think that's why people are drawn to you. It's why one of the reasons I'm drawn to you, because I can feel that coming off you. I can't exactly point to where it is, but it's just a vibe that you're your own man, living your own life in your own way. And you've made certain, and it's also like you're the track, the training, the Olympic lifting, the sandals, the grounding, the spirituality. It's all this interest. It just seems like you're living an interesting life and you're following your own path.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun. I can do so many things with this whole grounding thing. I'm finishing up a book right now.
Oh.
And that's been a big project of mine for the last 2 years. And I'm very excited. I'll be publishing it through Amazon, but I've had so many people message me. They're like, I want this book, because I'll put out like little snippets of it here and there. But it's been very, very fun for me.
I gave up coffee and started grounding like 2 weeks ago. and sun gazing in the morning. So I like went out into my lawn and just stood on my bare feet on the grass and spent some time with the sun. And I haven't missed coffee at all. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Like I thought, like it woke me up somehow. Like it did something, and I noticed my energy levels are a lot more. I mean, part of it is I'm sure is giving up coffee, but I feel more grounded. I feel like my energy sustains through the day. I don't. It doesn't wane the same way. So
Nature is your energizer.
right,
It's the natural energizer.
right, right. Do you think a lot about your culture, your Native American culture? Like how much has that influenced you? It's obviously it's a topic in the culture. I can imagine that there's, I don't know, do you feel a responsibility to speak up about the certain issues, or is that something you don't think about, worry about?
I try not to get too involved with politics, especially, and reservations have their own set of politics
Yeah.
that they deal with. I don't get too involved with it. A lot of it just because I don't think I personally can do too much about it, but there are some things that I do try and advocate for, and that's this whole sense of victimhood and oppressed mentality that's very rampant in minority cultures, particularly Native Americans. They, and history has shown us the cruelty of people to other people, especially with the Native Americans, but it happened a long time ago, and I think we need to move on from that.
Right.
There are a lot of opportunities for you out there, and if anything, I'd like to show other Native Americans that you can do something with yourself. You can create something, and you don't have to live this this oppressed. I'm a victim of whatever happened a couple 100 years ago, and you can do things with yourself.
Yeah.
That mindset is very it's very detrimental, and it'll keep you where you're at if you maintain it. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you get any pushback on that from people in the community?
No, I don't think so. I think so. Usually, when I talk to other Native Americans about something like that, it always ends up being like, "Oh, you know what? I think you're right." Like it's just they start to resonate with me more, and sometimes it takes someone to really put things in perspective for them like that they come to their realization that that victimhood mentality is not going to take them anywhere in life.
It was interesting because I was saying to you that I danced at Paradise for completed 2 years, and I came in it through the music for whatever reason. I fell in love with the music, and I started working with this guy and learning the songs. Then I started going to Sweat Lodge and just kind of fell in love. And then Vision Quest, and did a bunch of Vision Quests and got a lot from it. I mean, it was very, very powerful. And then I got invited to Sundance, which was a little terrifying, but
it's different. It's a different experience.
It's a different experience, yeah. But now I mean, it's a weird thing to say that I love it. It's a very hard thing to do, but there's something very.
It's rich.
It's rich, yeah.
Yes.
And it gives you an experience, and that experience gives you spiritual information that I don't think you can get. Well, I don't want to say any other way, but you have to make that kind of commitment and sacrifice, I think, to acquire that wisdom, and then that's what drives you through it. That's what allows you to get through it all. So, I forget what I was going to say about that, but it's been profound for me to connect to that tradition. And I mean, how is that for you? I mean, do you feel an obligation to stay connected?
Yeah. And it's kind of a sad thing to watch because the culture is dying. It's dying out. And, the people that I can't speak the language. I was always around the language growing up. I can't speak it.
You can't speak it. Yeah.
I can't speak it fluently, but that's something that I've noticed over time in my family and families on the reservation is that this thing it's going away and no one's really maintaining it anymore. And the language is eventually going to
Right.
be dead.
Yeah.
And that's been a very sad thing for me to watch. And I ordered a Lakota book, so I've kind of taken it upon myself.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I do want to learn the
It's a
language.
tough language.
It is. It's very tough language, but I've been around it a lot of my childhood, a lot of my life, and it's a very, very cool thing to hear someone speak fluent
Yes.
Dakota.
Yes.
I just heard someone a few weeks ago speak, full on, 20 minutes of just straight Lakota language.
Wow.
Beautiful, and it's usually elderly people that are doing that. But I just think a lot of kids, they just don't have any desire to be, involved with that.
Yeah, I understand. It's sad. I remember what I was going to say. I was leading to this, going back to what you're saying about this attachment to victimization. Chief Crow Dog Jr., every morning at Sundance, he would give a speech, and he really did in a very subtle but direct way, say just that, like, don't victimize yourself. He was talking about colonization, like decolonization. He's like, nobody, you're not decolonizing. What are you going to give up your refrigerator? That's not happening. You're not going back to living on the land and hunting buffalo. That's not what we're doing. So give that up. Just be traditional. And so I was happy to see that, like to hear that, because I have my own thoughts about it, but also I have my own experience, and I can't put myself in somebody else's shoes, and I understand people's emotional experience, and they have a right to their feelings in that way. But ultimately, yeah, it doesn't serve really to stay attached to the past.
I think
attached to our history.
I think it's important to remember, but not to hang on to it in such a way that bring you back, bring you back in life.
Right.
And my grandpa was chief. He was Chief Iron Shell.
Chief Iron Shell.
Iron Shell. Yeah, that was my grandpa. He was the last chief in our family.
So I know Bo Iron Shell. Do you know Bo?
There are a lot of iron shells.
There's a lot of iron shells?
Okay. So I'm not familiar with every single one. But
I
know a lot of them.
Yeah.
So,
he was a chief.
He's chief, yes. One of the last few.
Wow.
Chiefs.
Wow. What did you learn from him?
He was one of the people that got me into wrestling. So I think he just wanted me to exert myself in some kind of physical capacity, and he absolutely loved me wrestling. When I started wrestling from a very early age, like from 3rd grade, and he was at every single meet, and he absolutely loved it. But he was a very strong, stern man. Like when this chief walked into a room, you could just feel it. Like everybody would straighten up, and it was just kind of that atmosphere that he would create. And being around that, growing up, it made me want to hold myself in a strong way.
Yeah.
And he emanated such strength. And I didn't get to spend a lot of time with him before he passed. But I want to kind of eventually get to that point where people, they want to be better around you, not for the sake just because you're there, but just for themselves too.
Right.
They see this strong person and they want to emanate that, because I don't have enough good things to say about my grandpa.
Right.
He was the physical embodiment of strength, and it's something that's very hard to find these days.
Did you have other? What's your relationship like to men? Did you have strong masculine role models?
The men that he raised, my uncles, were very, very strong, masculine men, and so I was around that a lot growing up. And so being around that for most of my life, I became very disciplined in everything that I did. And if I didn't do something that I was supposed to be doing, I was disciplined. So I got spanked a lot as a kid. I was physically disciplined, but I don't regret that at all. I think it made me into a very strong person.
Right.
But I was always kind of around that very, very masculine kind of manly environment.
Right.
With my uncles. So.
That's interesting. That's it's and how do you think that's affected you as an adult? Because it seems like you are very disciplined, man. I suspect you don't miss a lot of training sessions.
I do not. No, I take my training very, very seriously, and I'm very disciplined with everything that I do. But I look back on it and I'm very thankful because all of that just it made me who I am.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I would have been as disciplined as I am now or be doing any of the things that I've been doing now without that kind of very high discipline environment and those types of people around me.
How was hog hunting?
That's good.
Yeah.
Yesterday we were at Independence Ranch and you pay a flat fee and you go out there. There's so many wild hogs. There's so many wild boars out there. And I got a couple of them. My buddy had got another couple, and we got the meat right there at the ranch, brought it back, cooked it last night, and it was...
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's good.
Are you is hunting something you've been doing for a
Very
while?
recently. I was around hunting a lot as a kid. I just never... I wasn't interested in it that much growing up. But now, times have changed with, industrialized... food and all that meat. So getting my own food has become more important to me. And a lot of my friends, they have their own businesses and companies that really preach this kind of, hunting for your own food and getting sustainably sourced meat. But yeah, I'm hog hunting yesterday. I'm going whitetail hunting when I get back to Iowa. And then in January, I will be hunting again. So
the idea is to have all your own meat.
Yeah, my own meat. I would
Wow.
like to get to that point. Yes.
Wow. So you need a big freezer.
Yeah. That's okay. That's easy. That's easy.
Yeah, you're interesting because you do defy stereotypes in a way. Seeing you with pictures with your on your Instagram with the AR, shooting it, which it looks super cool. And also you smoke cigarettes.
Yeah, I do like tobacco.
How much do you smoke?
2 to 3 times a week.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
Oh, just have a couple cigarettes a week. Oh.
Yeah. I enjoy when I'm smoking tobacco, and I was always around tobacco.
Yeah, of course.
In that culture, my creativity and my focus is just skyrocketing, and I don't feel an addiction at all with nicotine. I think if you you see it as this tool that you can utilize to create beautiful things, then that addiction side of thing, that negative aspect of it, kind of goes away, at least for me. But yeah, I love to write when I have a nice nicotine buzz from tobacco, and it's
a nootropic.
It's a tool for me. That's how I see everything: alcohol, tobacco, all those things. I'm not without my vices. I love alcohol. I love wine. I love whiskey. I love nicotine. All those things.
Yeah.
I can create beautiful things with all of these things, but I don't need any of them.
Right.
So they're nice.
You can see from the outside though, like it's hard. You're hard to make sense of. Like it feels like a contradiction. I mean, it's not when you explain yourself. It's very rational, but you can see from the outside where people would be confronted by that.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people message me. They're like, this is not a good message that you're sending. When you're smoking cigars and cigarettes and all that. I'm not. It's not my job. Like, I'm not trying to, tell people to live a certain way. These are my things that I enjoy, and they enrich my life. And you can do whatever you want to do. My whole, mission and message is grounding. I think that's one of the most underutilized and most beneficial things you could ever do in your life.
Right, because people are generally ungrounded. They're disconnected from themselves. They're disconnected from nature. And if they could tap into that intelligence that is there, there'd be a lot more peace and harmony within themselves than, I guess, in the world.
Yeah. That's nature's battery. And you had talked about it earlier. You had given up coffee and you're going out and you're getting sunlight and you're grounding. Those are two of the biggest things that can energize your body: is sunlight and the earth's surface below you, that negative surface charge.
Are there edges for you, like in your life now, like things that you're coming up against or risks you need to take, or obstacles, whether external or internal? Like you're a track athlete, but you're getting older, I guess, right? Like, how old are you now?
29.
29. So, do you think about life after?
No, I don't worry about any of that.
You don't?
I just take it a day at a time. And life just seems so. I do hard things like on a daily basis with track and field and mixed martial arts. Everything else in life just seems so easy, kind of comical in a way that like, I would, in the past maybe get stressed about this little thing, but when you do hard things on a very when you do them frequently, it makes all these other things seem like, it's not a big deal. And I think maybe I've desensitized myself to, things that should be stressing me out in life. But I think the kind of training that I expose myself to, it makes the rest of life just seem so easy. But no, I don't worry about what the future holds. I just kind of take it a day at a time.
Really?
Yeah.
Have you always been like that?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this has, I think it can be negative. It could be positive, but I might be dead tomorrow. I might be dead next week. I want to live my life now. I want to enjoy all these things now. I want to enjoy tobacco. I want to enjoy alcohol, and I want to hang out with my friends, and just worrying about that. It's not going to change anything.
Yeah.
So I think that's very much how I live my life.
Yeah. You don't seem neurotic.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm in a community of high neurosis. I feel like with the health stuff, everybody, they want all the red light and all the supplements and all these different things. And I'm just like, I don't worry too much about those things. I keep it basic. I get my sunlight. I get my grounding. I get real food. I put real food in my body.
Yeah.
I have good relationships. I have good, meaningful relationships. And I feel amazing every single day just from those things. And I think, people, they don't master those basics. They want the easy things, they want the pill that they can take to enhance their life in whatever which way. But yeah, I'm not very neurotic. Like if and a lot of my friends, if you speak to them, they're like, this isn't this, super, high performing health guru that, does all these different little things that makes him who he is. Like, I don't like I just prefer to stick to the basics, and
yeah,
people get too caught up in all those little things to where they're not enjoying their life.
I think that's wise. I've been thinking about that because there's so much information out there, and there's always something new that you're supposed to be doing, and you can never do it all. And I end up being neurotic about everything that I feel like I'm supposed to be doing that I'm not doing. So I've had to do, because I like to try everything. Mm-hmm. But now I've just, it's you got to simplify.
Yeah. And, these days when you have people like Huberman, who's awesome, and many, many other people, you'll end up with a handful, like 2 handfuls of supplements in your hands, and you're gonna take all these throughout the day. And I think that's what a lot of health people on Instagram have come to. There's lots and lots of supplements, lots and lots of modalities, and it's just, let's just keep it basic. And I think that's what's easy, because when people see, people post, all these things you have to take, it's kind of discouraging, I feel like, for just the person that just wants to be healthier. They want, they want to be better. They're like, oh, I got to take all these different things. I have to do all these different things. No, you don't. You just have to, get some sunlight, go outside, be barefoot. It's really, really simple.
Yeah.
I think we've been overcomplicating things a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe. So.
Yeah. See, you're not worried about the future, but you are. I guess what you're doing is you're focusing on what you're doing in the present moment, and it feels like you have a mission. So you're on purpose. You have community, and you're just going to continue to build off that as things come. So I guess if you have an impulse, it's like, oh, I'm going to write a book. Okay, I'm going to write a book, and if I want to, create some shoes. I'm going to make some shoes and see where that goes. But you don't have some overarching idea that I want to start a shoe company and then I want to sell it to so-and-so and make like $50 million. And
I have projects that I'm working on. I have the book, I have shoes, I have the sandals, among other things. But
you are ambitious.
Yes. I do have that side of me, but you know, all of these things are cool, the sandals and the shoes and all that, but really everything comes back to me just spreading this message. That's why I started doing what I was doing.
Right.
I just wanted to spread a message. And eventually, you know, my goal was to just for everybody to have this mentality that this is something they can utilize in their health toolbox. And hopefully I feel like I've done a decent job thus far.
Yeah, you've done a great job. But you are a good marketer.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a handsome guy with a crazy body, right? And so it's like, which, you know, we all exploit what it is that we have. I don't know, maybe exploit's not the right word, but to bring eyeballs, right, to your message. But you know, you train hard.
Yeah.
So you're actually just showing people what it is you're doing.
Yeah, I show people I train hard, I ground a lot, and you know, this is the product of that. I'm the product of that. So,
It's inspiring.
leading by example is a very, very important thing. So
Olympic lifting?
Olympic lifting, it's a supplemental thing to my running, but
It's power and explosion.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's, but you got to be careful with the weight room, especially when you're a track athlete, when you're a speed athlete, because it can be detrimental.
Why?
The weight room isn't conducive to athletic performance, at least how I see it. And there are many people out there that also feel that way. But that's something that's going to take time, I think, because for some reason, you know, people have ingrained this mentality that you need to go in the weight room, you need to squat, you know, 500 pounds, and that's going to make you fast. That's going to make you better in your sport. And it doesn't work like that. You get better at your sport by doing your sport. And I've seen a lot of athletes ruined by the weight room. And I myself kind of ruined myself by being in the weight room so much just because it was not conducive to my running. And especially when I started to take on mixed martial arts, I was like, I feel like a robot right now doing all of these sagittal plane movements, these single plane movements in the weight room. I just felt like a robot. I felt not fluid. And when I had cut back on the weight room, I just started, you know, focusing on functional movement and things that were conducive to my performance with running and mixed martial arts. I felt so much better.
Interesting.
I moved so much better. So
Well, the Olympic lifts there's a fluidity to a lot of them, I guess.
there are aspects of it that are conducive to performance. You know, triple extension, elasticity. You know, these are all things that are super, super important, especially for sprinters. But a lot of it is not very beneficial.
Interesting.
So,
Interesting.
There's a big paradigm shift for me too. You know, I used to be the gym rat. I was going 3-4 times a week, and now I go probably once a week.
Really?
Most weeks, yeah.
You lift once a week?
I do a lot of med ball stuff. Like I'll bring my med ball or maybe my kettlebell to the track with me, and I'll do some stuff with that.
Right.
But yeah, my weight room time is cut down drastically.
Do you live alone?
Yeah.
How long have you lived alone?
A couple years. Yeah, I used to live with a couple buddies in South Dakota in a townhome, and then I found out I cannot live with other people. So
Where in South Dakota were you guys living?
It was actually on the outside of Sioux City where I'm at now. We were so Sioux City is right in between Nebraska, Iowa, and South Dakota.
Right.
And I was on the South Dakota side.
Okay.
And now I'm back to the Iowa side.
Oh, okay.
Haven't been to the Nebraska side, so maybe eventually I'll try that side out. But, yeah, I can't live with people, and that makes me nervous.
Why?
I think I have some tendencies where I like everything to be where it needs to be. And, you know, living with other people, you know, so you have to deal, like if they're dirty and there's things, you know,
There's chaos.
dishes and clothes everywhere. And I felt like it affected my productivity a little bit, kind of like my workflow. It's just like, I don't know if that's maybe kind of a neurotic side of me, but I like, you know, everything to be orderly and neat around me, and that allows me to kind of be more creative and more productive. But,
do you get lonely, or do you feel?
No, I love my own company.
You love your own company.
So, and this is something I've been asking myself for some time now. I've spent so much time alone working on, you know, everything that I'm working on, that it came to a point where I wasn't having a lot of social contact. So I felt like I started getting some sociopathic tendencies. I struggled to resonate with other people's emotions. And I don't know if that's, you know, that's part of, you know, the sociopathic, you know, mentality. But I did notice that over time. And then I just started to enjoy my own company. And that makes me a little nervous because like, you know, when eventually, you know, when I meet potential wife, potential mate, I'm just like, shoot, maybe if I like my own company so much, I'm not going to want to like, you know, because I notice it when I'm out with my friends too. I have very low social battery. Like I need a lot of alone time.
Social battery meaning?
Like if I'm out with a lot of people, I flatline really quick. Like I burn out really quick, and I'm like I want to go home now. I want to work.
Interesting.
Productive. So
do you does that concern you, or you were? I mean, it does, I guess, in the sense if you want a partner and you're going to be living together, and
it's concerned me a little bit, but I'm happy. I feel happy, so I'm not worried about it too much. So, but that is something that I've
there's something that you're aware of. I wonder what do you speculate? Is that something you feel like you'd like to change?
Yeah. I enjoy being around people. I enjoy being around my friends, but I don't know why. I don't know why I have such a low social battery. I think it's just because I spent so much time alone that just became comfortable for me. That became my default state, is just wanting to be alone and work and, you know, have my own time to think and be creative. So
yeah, when I relate, I'm somebody who spent a lot of time alone, and then what happened for me is I realized that I was isolating in a way that was unhealthy, and that I was avoiding. I'm not suggesting that's what you're doing, but this is what happened for me. And then I made a commitment to, like, I had to be in community. Like I have to figure out some way to live in community, even though people can be extremely annoying in community and difficult and challenging and messy and all of that. I just realized like, oh, I have to figure this out for myself.
And so did you start like forcing yourself?
I forced myself.
I
forced myself to go out. And well, what happened, I also, again, I don't know if you have, there's anything, you just be at a phase of your life where you're very much invested in your work and building something. And so it makes sense to me that you would want to be alone. And I relate to that. But for me, it became a way, it was avoidance, and I felt isolated and lonely. And then I made a commitment. I was like, I have to be in community. I have to be in relationship. And so I started saying yes to almost everything for a period of time. Yeah. And then when I got filled up and just realized how much I loved being around people. And then I started showing up, I guess, and maybe I had some idea that if I was around people, I had to show up in a particular kind of way. So I had to suppress some aspects of myself or who I am or what I think, to stay in connection, to stay in cohesion with the group. And then I made a decision to stop doing that and just showed up as myself, which of course you're risking people not liking you, which a lot of people then did not like me. And I, similar to you, I just decided I don't give a shit. And then that's where I got really, really free. But yeah, because this is why I asked, because when you look at somebody's Instagram page, you get a vibe. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I get is like that you live alone. Like I like this guy, like you're not around a lot of people a lot of the time. And so, which is, it's not a judgment, it's just an observation.
Yeah. I think part of it is because like I have things that I'm working on right now. And for some reason, I think that I'm wasting time by being out in the community. And really, it's probably the opposite. Having that kind of connection with people would probably enhance my work, but it's just some kind of barrier that I've needed to overcome. As far as like, I just wanting to be alone most of the time.
Yeah,
working and creating things. So
yeah, I guess it's a fine line, right? You want to be alone, because I have this too. It's like, it took me a long time to get into relationship. I avoided a relationship for a long time, and I love to just dissolve into my work and not have to think about anything else, and I can disappear, and even emails and phone calls can begin to annoy me.
Yeah.
I'm just like, why are you fucking calling me? Like, I'm working. You know that? You know, it's insane. But with my girl now, I realize like I have to stop and then spend time with her, or otherwise she's not going to be happy. And then I realize I get filled up by that interaction, and I really need that. I guess, yeah, I wonder, yeah, because it must have been strange growing up on the reservation being half white.
Yeah.
And I guess like there's an something gets internalized, like I'm different. And maybe like there's is like something not okay? Like, is there anything, I don't know, fear? It must have been scary. Like you must have, I guess the point I'm making is like, you must have felt alone from the beginning.
Yeah, I wanted to fit in when I was a kid.
Yeah.
It never happened. I mean, even when I was in college, like I still felt like I never fit in. And
Why?
I don't know. I always just liked being alone, and that didn't allow me to build a lot of relationships throughout my life. And I never understood that aspect of myself. I always just thought, it's just the way you are.
Iron Shell.
Iron Shell. Yeah.
It's an interesting name.
Yeah.
Iron Shell.
Yeah. It used to be just Chief Iron Shell, and that turned into our last name. And so that's how I got my last name, is from Chief Iron Shell.
Right.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I wanted
Do you have an iron shell? Like, is that?
I've heard that one a lot throughout my life.
Have you?
Yeah. No, I haven't. But people do really, really like the last name. It's a very, very interesting, unique last name. But that's usually what people would call me in high school.
Iron Shell.
College, Iron Shell, yeah. Just because like you'd rather call someone Iron Shell than Robert. So.
Right. But you could see how that, like, that's your name, and it becomes your part of your identity, and part of your identity, the literally Iron Shell. Mm-hmm. Like that's a powerful word. Do you feel that you have an iron shell, which can be both great, it's good, but it can also be not so good.
Maybe something I never thought about. The act. I always saw it as a name that just has a lot of strength and honor associated with it, but I never actually thought, Iron Shell, like what is the actual like, meaning beyond that for this name. But maybe, now that you put it that way, I do kind of put a shell around myself, and I think there are parts of me, and I've dated in the past, and a lot of the reasons that a lot of my relationships didn't work out is because I was so enveloped with what I was doing. And, as girlfriends do, they, spend more time with me, do all these things with me. And a lot of them suffered because, I wanted to work. I felt like I was working on something really, really important in my life. And that ultimately led to me spending less time with the people I was dating.
What was the feedback you get from these women? Like, what was their? Would they have a consistent complaint?
Yeah, it's and some of it comes back to that sociopathic thing. It was always like, you're not emotional. Like you're not emotional enough for me. I want more from you. Like that aspect of you. And I'm just like, I feel like if I try and do those things for you, it would be inauthentic. In a way for me to try and, express these emotions when really it's just me trying to please you because you asked that of me.
Right.
But that's just not who I am. I'm not a very emotional person.
You're not?
I'm not. And that's...
What does that mean? You're not an emotional person? Like,
so I don't
manifest in your life?
I don't express it very... and I don't even want to say express it. I struggle to like really feel those things very, very intensely.
Feel what things?
Like extreme like anger or extreme happiness or any of that. I'm kind of like right in the middle. Like I feel things in that medium zone. And, I'm capable of feeling those things, but to the extent, that a partner would want me to feel those things, especially like romance and whatever else they would want from me, affection. I wasn't raised in a very, affectionate culture. I was raised in a very strong man culture that, sometimes it would be looked down upon to feel those kinds of things and express those kinds of things. So maybe that has
Like more vulnerable feelings,
right,
you mean?
yeah, more vulnerable, to make yourself vulnerable.
Right. That's interesting. So you may have to disassociate from them in some way, make yourself kind of masculine and strong, and it's not okay to I don't know, like.
And it wasn't purposeful. It's just like that. That's how I was. I was raised. Yeah.
Well, it's also how they survived. Like people say this all the time. Oh, men, they can't feel their feelings. Although women don't feel their feelings either. That's a whole other conversation. I won't get into that. Just because they cry and talk about their feelings, it doesn't mean they're connected to their feelings. But we had to disconnect from our feelings to survive in these brutal conditions. And it's only now, I think, that we've gotten out of survival mode basically as a species. I mean, not everywhere, but that we have the opportunity to kind of look inward and explore our feeling state and our unconscious and all these aspects of ourselves. So it's not really there's no right or wrong to it. It's just that's the way it evolved, and it makes sense that you would be that way. But it's also interesting that you get this feedback that you're not emotional, and that you identify with this idea that you're not emotional.
Yeah.
Which I don't think that's a thing. Like we're all emotional, right?
Yeah, I think we're all emotional. Just some people to more extent than other people.
How do you think about how do you feel about your emotions? Like when you just like in the abstraction, like when you think about your feelings and your emotions, like.
I see it as this thing that's just here now, and just let it happen, and then it's gonna go away. So I in a sense, I do disassociate with them. Like, I'm angry now. I feel angry about this, something that's probably very, very unimportant. And I think that makes me less prone to actually expressing anything about that situation.
So it's kind of more, you're stoic.
Yeah.
In the sense that you're aware of the emotion, but you don't react to it.
Right.
What would happen if you reacted to it? What would do you let your anger out? Have you ever gotten angry? You yell and scream? And
very few times in my life I've gotten to that point where I'm just lashing out, angry. Especially because I'm alone most of the time.
Right.
So I'm not going to be, walking around my garage yelling into the void.
Oh, really? I do all the time.
No, I'm at a very good point in my life where mostly what I feel is a lot of meaning and just creativity.
Yeah.
And I do start to feel some sides of me come out if I'm dating somebody that like, oh, maybe I do need to work on this side of me. And
what?
My affectionate, my
because you grew up without affection.
Yeah.
Touch.
Yeah, and I've struggled with that too, kind of just the touchy stuff. But
because that's grounding as well.
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, there is a transfer of electrical charge when you do touch somebody else. So, but I realized that there are aspects of me that were very, very underdeveloped as opposed to everything else that was going on in my life that I was putting my effort towards, my sports, the grounded athlete and all that.
How is it to have this conversation? Because obviously this is my whole area of expertise, and what I think about all the time is emotions and feelings, and how is it to even have that? I mean, do you have conversations like this?
No, I don't.
You don't?
No one ever really like probes me about this side of my personality.
How is it to be probed?
It's good. It makes me think. Like I don't really think about these things.
Yeah.
So it's nice. But it does bring to my attention. Yeah, there are aspects of me that are definitely they need to be improved upon as far as being a more affectionate, good potential partner for somebody in the future. But I don't worry about it too much. I'm just kind of doing my own thing.
Well, yeah, you're a young guy. You got lots of time. You got lots of time. But it's interesting. You're aware that at some point you're going to have to confront something, because if you want a relationship with a woman, they demand affection, and they demand that you're reasonably emotionally present.
Yeah.
Because if they can't feel you, it's hard for them to trust you.
Right.
And so I guess that's in your future.
Yeah. I will have to confront that when the time comes. But I'm working on some really, really important things in my life, and I think maybe just at this point in my life, it's just not an option for me. Like, I need to give all of myself to what I'm doing right now, and eventually down the line I'll think about that more. But I feel very connected to my work right now.
Yeah.
I want to kind of give all of myself to it. So.
Yeah, I understand that. And I'm glad you're doing that. It's very inspiring. The work you're doing, the way you do it, how you show up, how you put yourself out there, the philosophy. It is grounding. It's the perfect brand for you. I mean, you feel very grounded and rooted. I mean, I know you just start out like, okay, I'm just going to share this message. This is what I'm interested in. I'm going to share my life. This is what I'm doing. But then you get to a point where you have 85,000 followers on Instagram, and people are messaging you, and people are looking to you as a role model. Are you feeling any weight of, I don't know, responsibility with all these eyes on you? No.
I feel just the same way I did when I started 4.5 years ago, and I just do my best to educate people on this important thing, and I don't try and put that on my shoulders that I need to be this ultimate, role model for people, because there are plenty of people out there that they can look to for that, and that's not my desire to be, a role model for anybody, but it is my desire to teach them about something
Right.
that can really help them. So no, I don't think I put that kind of pressure on my shoulders. So
yeah, but it's there nevertheless. Have you had to adjust yourself in any way, or your thinking, or as you become more popular? Like, has it affected you in any way?
I probably should have adjusted myself. I just haven't.
You don't think about it?
Well, like, I like to be funny too. That's a big like. If I wasn't, if I wasn't allowed to express my humor, like through Twitter, and then I usually share that on Instagram, it wouldn't be as fun to me. But I don't think I'll ever not be this way. Like, I enjoy creating funny things and posting funny things and funny sides of my psyche, and I probably should have adjusted myself to be a little bit more censored with that, but I just haven't.
Yeah, no,
I think if anything, it's helped me more, and a lot of people like that side of the grounded athlete, and it's fun for me. Half of what I follow on social media is the health side of things, and the other half is funny stuff like cat memes.
Yeah.
But humor side of is very important to me. It just makes me happy. I like to laugh. I like to make other people laugh, and so there's definitely that comedian side to me, I think, too. So
what's your family think of you?
I don't know.
You don't know? Are they surprised by your life trajectory, or
they're usually pretty supportive of me. I don't talk to them too much about what I do. I do notice that
you don't talk to them about what you do? How often do you talk to your parents? Are they still together?
once a week. They're not together anymore.
When did they split up?
They split up in 2017.
Okay.
And they tried to make things work after they got back together, and then they split up again. Yeah, that had to do with my brother, who wasn't my dad's. So they had split up because of that.
Oh.
And so that was a big kind of shift for me. I had to, kind of deal with this different family dynamic. But I was already kind of on my trajectory to just going my own path at that point. So it didn't hinder me too much, but it was different. But yeah, I mean, the conversation of what I'm doing doesn't come up too much.
Are you an anomaly in the family, or?
Yeah, it's like not a lot of people went to school, to college or graduate school, and just kind of took the path that I took. It's like, it's 180.
Yeah.
Or
Well, you also
180,
don't see a lot of Native American athletes.
Yeah. It's
So it's all very. I mean, I know it's a trope, but it's true.
yeah. I don't know. I did take a different path than a lot of other people in my family, and I don't know if there was, maybe some kind of resentment for that,
Resentment.
because I did this thing and it ended up being pretty successful.
Yeah.
And I know there are people out there that don't like that, and they
That you're
resent-
successful.
Yeah. And
Why don't they like it?
well, I think, maybe if somebody sees something like that, they're like, oh, he's kind of like this. He's a different person now. He's all focused in on this thing, and maybe he's too good for us now.
I see.
And that kind of mentality. And I don't think that's the case at all.
No.
And
But that still must be hurtful.
yeah, it is interesting sometimes when, sometimes I feel like I get more support from someone across the world than I do from the people that are closest to me.
Wow.
I felt that a lot.
Your family. And,
Yeah, I felt that a lot in the last four and a half years.
So you haven't felt supported by your family. I mean, you say they support you, but in some way they haven't.
And I think a part of what has driven me so much is that sometimes I just wanted to hear, I'm proud of you for doing this. I think it's really, really, really cool. So sometimes I did want that validation from my family, or just more involvement in what I was doing, and sometimes I just didn't get that. And so
You didn't get that from your father or mother?
occasionally I would get it, but it was kind of like I always felt like they didn't really care about what I was doing.
Wow. So
Yeah, and maybe
they
they
didn't
did.
care about what you were doing, from the time you were a child?
I think I think more from the business side of things, what I've been doing the last 4.5 years. They were good parents. They're good parents too.
Yeah.
But and I'm just saying, I think that's been part of maybe what's been driving me so much the last 4.5 years, is maybe that innate part of me that just kind of wanted, hey, I'm proud of you for what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think, it's really, really cool. And I ended up getting that from somebody else who I didn't even know, and they're telling me that, and not this person that's really, really close to me.
Wow.
And so maybe they do, maybe they're absolutely 100% supportive, and they love everything that I do, and they just don't express it as much.
Do you think they're threatened by you in some way? In other words, if you go out and you're your own man and you become successful, it challenges them. What is it?
I don't know. It's just something that's
Are you angry about that? That they don't see you, or they don't pay attention to you, or they don't tell you that they're proud of you? Because it's like they're your fucking parents.
Yeah.
It's your family. It's kind of their job.
Yeah. I wouldn't say angry. I just felt like maybe a little bit of lack that I had. I didn't have that, keep going. Keep going. I'm proud of you. You're doing a good job. I wanted that every once in a while, and I feel like I just wasn't getting it.
Right.
And yeah, that was something that has been in the back of my mind for as long as I've been doing what I'm doing.
Wow. So that is it fair to say that's something that's painful for you, or disappointing, or?
Yeah, more so. I mean, a little disappointing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I try not to hold on to these things too much.
Of course.
So, but yeah, that is something I've thought about
But the implication is that some of that is what's driving you, like that this desire, like unconsciously. I feel like most of us in some way. I mean, there's an innate desire to please the parents, particularly I think the father, like, and that gets transferred onto God. Like I want to please God, and that feels good. That feels right.
Yeah.
And so when we don't get the affirmation, when we feel like we're showing up in a good way and doing what we can, it can be painful, and then unconsciously we can keep driving to try to get that validation. And I think that's all of us. I don't know that we can escape that. In some way, we're motivated by our passion and by this life force inside us, you know, and by whatever essence we have from God.
We want people to recognize us.
But we want people to recognize it, particularly our parents, and we don't get recognized. It's not even a bad thing. It's like probably a feature, not a bug, but it is. I don't know. I just think it's important, you know, to name it.
I mean, I identified that feeling within myself, like kind of midway through my little journey the past 5 years. And I think once I recognized it, it just kind of suppressed. And I don't want to say suppressed, but I didn't worry about it as much.
Right. You understood that's what was going on for you.
I think I'm pretty self-aware of my shortcomings as far as like my psyche, like things I need to work on. It's just me actually working on them. It's like I can recognize, okay, I am not good at this specific thing, and I understand that. That's all I'm gonna do. Like,
well, you don't. I guess the implication is you don't need to be good at it right now. Like once you become, you know, get in a relationship, and I assume you want to become a father.
Yeah.
Then maybe a different skill set or will be asked of you, and you'll have to evolve in that way. But for now, you're a young man and you're doing your thing.
You're excited for kids.
Yeah, what's that?
I'm excited for kids. Yeah.
You are.
I love kids.
Because you're from how many? You said 5 of you?
I have 3 younger sisters and a younger brother. My younger brother
So it's 5 total.
Yeah.
Would you like to have 5?
Maybe like 1 or 2. I think probably 2. Two is like my the number I've been defaulting to for as long as I've been thinking.
Do you get a lot of attention from women?
Yeah, I do, especially with the social media thing and all that. But I don't think about it too much. Like it's so like my thing, my projects that I'm working on are like up here, and then like women are over here, and that's, you know,
It makes them want you even more.
Maybe, yeah. I don't really think about it.
But they must come at you. They flirt with you, or they let you know they're, hey, hi.
Yeah. And
how is that?
it's good. I mean, it's good to have that female attention for sure. It lets me know, like, hey, you know, there's a lot of people out there that are interested in me. A lot of women out there that want to be involved with me. But and that's just gonna be its own thing. And I don't really think about it too much.
Do you actively date?
If I'm,
or you just kind of let it come to you? Are you out looking?
I'm
go
not
out?
looking. I'm not looking.
You're not looking.
I'm not looking. No. There was a point, like, especially when I was in school or when I was in college, like I'd be looking for somebody, like, oh, I think a girlfriend would be really cool. Like, I'm gonna seek this out. But usually when I try and look for something, I try and seek something out, it just goes farther away from me.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't. That's one of the things in my life. It'll come. I'm not worried about it.
You're not worried about it. It'll just come. Yeah.
And I noticed, a lot of, my friends that are looking for, a significant other, and they try so hard to look for that person, and it's almost like counterproductive. For them. It's like some kind of universal law. The more you just reach out for something, it just kind of.
That's right. Yeah. No, I think that's, I think that's right. It pushes it away.
Yeah. So,
you grew up, I know a lot about the Lakota, the way that they see spirit and God, and but you became Christian. What is your relationship like how do you think about your relationship to God, and what does that mean in your life?
Well, so Christianity is something that I came upon in sophomore year, high school. And it was just such an enchanting story for me. And not just, I mean, not a
Story of Christ.
Yeah, the story of Christ is
Yeah.
a very enchanting, beautiful story for me, that this person would take all of my dirtiness and disgustingness and make me worthy and do this very kind of ultimate act for me, die for me.
Yeah.
Despite that I would potentially turn my back on him, he would still do that for me. That's a very beautiful story for me, a very romantic story for me. And it just clung to me. I clung to it. And
It's interesting to discover it at that, like, it's a young age to discover Christianity. I mean, it's one thing to be raised Christian and then sort of renew your faith, but to come to it, especially out of another tradition. I mean, how strong was the tradition you grew up in? Like, I know what it is, but how prevalent was it in your household?
Yeah, it was a very different dynamic because, at all of our gatherings, all of our ceremonies, we're praying to Tunkashla, who's creator. And that, before we would eat, before any kind of Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas dinner, we were doing these prayers, these Lakota prayers. And it was like, it was definitely different because, like, I was coming from this angle now. And I respect my culture and I respect where I come from, but that's not not where my heart is.
That must also create some separation between you and the culture that you've found a different faith. And so in some way, I mean, it's not exactly what you've done, but you can imagine from their perspective, like, you've rejected their culture, or your culture, like some aspect of yourself. I mean, but you're learning the Lakota language. I don't feel like you've rejected it, but you can imagine how I would feel that, and it creates separation.
I've thought about that too. Yeah. And it is kind of like just turning away from this thing that I was raised in, this prayer, Tunkashala, the creator. And I didn't fully feel like I had turned away from it because, it's whoever you want to name him, God. It's just, I found him in a different way.
I understand.
But and Christianity has been a big part of my life since then. I really, so when I got into that small group, I really kind of fell in love with the whole story of Christ. But when I started going to church, I did not like going to church, because I felt like I was dealing with facades when I got to church.
Yeah.
Like people putting on this whole kind of different personality in church, and then I would see them outside of church and be like a completely different person.
Yeah.
So I didn't like that aspect of it, and I still kind of deal with that to this day.
You still go to church?
Yeah. I think it's enriched a lot of what I do too. I ultimately, at the end of the day, I think God created this earth for us. He made it electrical for us, and we're meant to be connected to that. So we've made a sin against nature by these shoes that we wear.
Right. Yeah, interesting. How is it talk about all this stuff?
It's cool. I mean, the other sides of me that you've addressed, I don't really talk about that too much. Usually when I go on a podcast, it's all grounding science.
Grounding,
work specifically. But it's cool. It's kind of like I get to do somewhat of a therapy session with my friend. And I'd rather do it that way,
Right.
than going
Yeah.
with some stranger who may not even care.
Yeah.
Me, so.
Yeah. Well, I got into it when I was about your age, therapy, just because I realized, like, I was in these repeating patterns, and I must not have been conscious. If there was a pattern over and over again, there was something going on in my psyche that I did not understand. And I'd always been interested in it from the beginning, from a young age, just the idea that we had an unconscious and there were thoughts and ideas and feelings in our unconscious that we didn't know about that were influencing our lives and the decisions that we were making. I was like, well, shit, man, I want to know what the fuck is going on in there. Otherwise, I'm not really free, you know? And so that kind of became my mission, is to embark on that journey. And yeah, I just became fascinated with the kind of emotional body and how emotions work and how they influence us, and how suppressed emotions create distortions in our perceptual field and in our belief systems. And, you know, the work I do here, you know, we use different physical techniques like hitting, punching, kicking to help people, you know, release, I would say, stuck, suppressed emotions, energy in the body, so they can release it really in a way that's cathartic for them, and hopefully let it go and come. Really, it's about presence. Like, you know, how do we bring ourselves back into being all the way present? And of course, if we have suppressed unconscious feelings, we can't actually be present, because there's some part of us that's not here. It's disassociated. So that's really the foundation of my work. And I, you know, I went to school for that, and then I went down the plant medicine route for about 4 years, pretty deep into the ayahuasca and the Shipibo tradition, and that led me to the Lakota. I was at a ceremony with a Shipibo maestro, I guess they call them, a Shipibo shaman, who had trained down in Peru, but he was also a sun dancer. And so during the ceremony, every once in a while, he would sing these Lakota songs. And I just would sit up and like I just was entranced by it for whatever reason. I know a lot of people feel that way. Like when they hear the songs for the first time, they feel familiar, which is really interesting. And then when I got back from that retreat in LA, I got an email from a friend 2 weeks later saying, oh, there's a Lakota song class with this guy, Yoshi. And I was like, what? Lakota song class? Like, I just gotten back. I just been impacted by this music, asked a lot of questions about it. And then I started working with this guy, Yoshi, who was a Lakota song carrier. He was a Japanese man, immigrated to the US, and then moved on to a reservation and started studying, and dedicated his life to the Red Road, and was a Sundance drummer and singer for, you know, he's sick now, but for all of his life. And so I learned from him, and then, yeah, as I said, started doing sweat lodges, and then Vision Quest, and then ultimately Sundance, and that's had a huge impact on my life. I mean, it's interesting because I came from, I guess Catholicism is not exactly Christianity.
Yeah, it's a little
bit different.
For me. Yeah.
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 So I was raised Catholic, and I didn't, you know, kind of abandoned that, understood that Jesus was the shit, you know, at the end of the day, that's the model, the highest level of consciousness. So, but it was something in the Lakota for me, because I asked myself, why am I so drawn to this? Because it's difficult. Like, sweat lodges are fucking hard, man.
Sundance is hard.
Sundance is fucking hard, and Vision Quest is hard. And why am I suffering? Why do I want to do this? But there's a kind of spiritual wisdom that I've acquired through it that's really informed my work, that I felt like I needed to do it in order to inform my work. And maybe unconsciously, I needed to test myself. Like, you know, I'm do something hard to gain more trust and respect with my clients, so that I'm not just in the psychological realm. Like, there's a spiritual component to my work, and I could feel like I wanted to bring it in and infuse it with the psychological work. And yeah, there's information, downloads, I guess, that I've received, you know, like at the tree after your piercing, and you're just like,
yeah,
what is going, like, there are other planes of reality that it gives you access to that feel, at first you're like, is that real? And then it's like, oh no, that's actually what's really real. This is the facade. I mean, this is the Maya, this is the Matrix. Yeah. And, you know, so I'm just like, and it's all the same thing, like going into the unconscious and trying to understand that is a way to deconstruct the Matrix or see the ways we're caught in the Matrix. And then, yeah, all the work that I'm doing with the Lakota is sort of the same thing. And the ayahuasca was the same thing. I don't drink ayahuasca anymore. I went through a period of time. It was kind of, once I got into the Lakota stuff, I didn't want to do it anymore. But that's my sort of arc and what I'm doing.
Were there any other like cultures that you were drawn to like that? The Lakota culture?
Not really. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why. And it's not. It's what is it about? It's weird. Like it's kind of weird, you know. And but it does make sense. Like it all makes sense when you're there. But that whole Sundance thing, and you're in the outfit, and you're dancing all day in the tree and the prayer ties. Like it's almost a technology in a way. And if you do all of these things and commit to all of them, that's like the channel will open up. But I don't think I was ever attracted to anything. I was attracted to the Shipibo. There was something about the chanting of the Shipibo tradition that really, once I discovered it, I was like, that I only wanted to sit with Shipibo shamans or maestros or whatever they call themselves, because I was so fascinated with the chanting. But then once I heard the Lakota, I don't know, I was like, that's for me. And it was the music. And the deeper I went into the music, like channels opened up, and I don't know why, right? I mean, why are we drawn to what we're drawn to? Why are we doing what we're doing? There's a mystery to it, and I don't know. I mean, as soon as I knew like 15 songs, I'm like, I want to learn. I want to get to 100, and once I knew 100, I'm like, I want to get to 200, and I'm at like 160 Lakota songs I know now, and I don't know why, but I love the songs. And there's something also about, now I'm like ranting about this, but I love the simplicity, the purity of the poetry. Like so many of the songs are just like, Tunkashila, grandfather, like, look at me, I'm standing here, with this pipe, I'm sending a voice, look at me. And it's just that's all we need, right? In some way, it goes back to what we were talking about with you, with your dad, like with your parents. Like that's all we need. We just want to be seen. Yeah. We want to be recognized, right? And so all of these songs, these prayers, which are just like, see me, mm-hmm. I'm standing here like Tonkashila, why my yanguelo, like, see me, hear me, I'm standing here. I just found that so, like, it got to the heart of it, like just to the root of it in a way that I found so beautiful. So, yeah, it's also like, I feel as a white person, there's like, I have this self-consciousness, mm-hmm. like about it. And I've questioned my own motivation about why, and I it's a strange thing on social media because it's like we share our lives. This is a big part of my life, right? I mean, I go to lodge every Wednesday, but I don't share it that much because I don't know. It doesn't feel. It's so easy to be misinterpreted, and yeah, it's just maybe it's just not my place mm-hmm. somehow. So I have an internal conflict, and yet there's a part of me that's like, at the end of the day, it's between me and spirit. Yeah. Nevertheless, it's,
We always invited people, like outsiders, to be part of the Sundance. There are some people that have their own Sundances that are just like no white people.
Yeah.
That's cool. It's cool that you were drawn to it. It's kind of interesting because you were drawn to aspects of my spirituality, but I'm kind of drawn to some aspects of yours with the Catholicism, Christianity.
Yeah.
So,
It's really interesting.
how do you feel about psychedelics? Because that's kind of been a lot of the rage lately. I know Joe Rogan says everybody should do psychedelics and that'll make the world better.
I would encourage everyone. Well, if you feel drawn, it's always the thing. If you feel drawn to it, have you tried psychedelics?
No, but I asked you because I have known people that have done psychedelics and it's like they completely changed and it's like they're a different person. I
Yeah,
don't know you anymore.
yeah, that
So,
can happen. That can happen. I think if you do mushrooms, you're probably not going to have that experience. Like if you do a couple of grams of mushrooms just to like have an experience, it's going to open you up to something. Um, the ayahuasca that's probably where you're seeing people completely change. The issue with ayahuasca is the culture around it can be a little culty.
yeah.
So communities are built around it, and I don't want to say too much but yes, I mean, the Santo Daime is a church built around ayahuasca, and there's a lot of ayahuasca ceremonies and communities that are derivative of that. And um, yeah, there's something culty about it that I think you have to be aware of. The reason that I like the Shipibo is because it feels to me very clean.
Yeah.
So we're going to drink the medicine. There's not a lot of pretense. You know, they have their pipes and they have the different things that they do, but essentially they're shutting off the lights. We're in basic darkness, and they're chanting all night long. And these chants have a technology which is they have a vibration. And the idea being that if you drink the ayahuasca, it's almost like it opens you up in some way. And so it makes you available to have these chants, this vibration come in and almost break up the places where you have stuck emotions, where you're held, and kind of retune you. And that is the experience that I've had, which can be incredibly terrifying because it's an ego death and it takes you totally out of control, at least for me. And so, yeah, I mean, it was ayahuasca with the Shipibo, with the shamans who know what they're doing, can be absolutely terrifying. But I got a lot out of it. I was pretty grounded going into it. But if you're not, I think you can get caught up in the nonsense.
I was going to ask if just how you saw the world was different after that.
Well, it gave me a embodied experience of unity consciousness, which I think we can get, when we get dissolved. I'm sure you have those experiences when you're working or when you're running or when you're training, where you just have this deep feeling where everything is one thing and you're not separate from anything. That experience in ayahuasca is unlike anything you could possibly imagine. I mean, it's almost like you see it. It's like it in a way that it was different than anything that I'd ever experienced before. There's like information that comes through. I mean, what they're saying, it's essentially the plant intelligence. Like the plant has an intelligence, and you're tapping into that in some way. I don't know if that's true. There's a lot of mythology around ayahuasca, and it's fine. Like all religion, they tell stories, and the stories, you don't need to take them literally. They're symbolic, but it definitely gives you a feeling of deep connection and to whatever is underneath all of this. Like if we're the icons on the screen, and underneath the icons is the source code that's making everything happen.
Yeah.
It puts you right into the source code. And now you are in the source code, and it's like, this is what reality is. All that stuff, that's not actually real. That's just the 3D manifestation of this.
So the bad trip comes from the ego going into it.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. People come out and say, ayahuasca told me this. You're like, was that ayahuasca, or is that your own mind's interpretation of what happened? Yeah, I mean, it's like it's not like anything. You have to be really careful. You have to get with people who know what they're doing and who are trained. And that said, there's, it's incredible. I mean, it's some of those beautiful experiences I've ever had have been in ayahuasca ceremonies, and it had a huge impact on me. It changed me in a great way. I think, it might be interesting for you, since there is a kind of stoicism that you have, and there's I don't know if this is the right word, but a kind of a rigidity, like a control. Well, ayahuasca, they say the plant is feminine. It's going to take you totally out of control. Like, once you drink this thing, it now has control. And if you try to control, you will suffer. And you realize at a certain point, the only way out of this feeling that I'm experiencing that I don't like, which is essentially suffering, is to surrender to this experience. I just have to say yes. And the lesson that taught me was really applicable to all of life. Like, all of my suffering is caused by resisting the present moment, resisting what is. And so ayahuasca for me became a practice of surrendering. Like, over and over again, it's like the medicine comes on. It's like, oh, I don't like this. Like, it's taking me somewhere. I don't know where. And then I'm gripping, and I'm like, I want it to be something other than what it is. And then I get scared, and eventually, you're just like, the mantra is, for me, yes, thank you. So it's just like, okay, yes, thank you. And then something, when you surrender, you go, like, it just, now you're somewhere else. And not that can't be scary. It can be, but the resistance is no longer there. And then you open yourself up to just a profound experience.
I've been thinking a lot about psychedelics lately, because I feel like I'm the guy that hasn't done psychedelics.
Yeah,
like,
it's
out
interesting.
of my friends, like, a lot of them have done, like, a lot of what have you, the psychedelics. My coach microdoses of mushrooms when he coaches me. So
right, yeah.
So, but it's something I think about. Like, maybe it would unlock that aspect of me a little bit more. Because I'm definitely open to it. I think it'd be an interesting experience.
Well, yeah, I think if you're drawn to it, just pray on it, and you'll probably get a sign or something. But yeah, it makes sense to me why you'd be drawn to it, and just based on the conversation that we had, and knowing that there's probably some things eventually that you're going to have to kind of confront and deal with. Yeah, I mean, it can crack you open a little bit and show you some things, and it can be really useful. But yeah, if you start with a couple of grams, even like 2 grams of mushroom, that's plenty. You'll have an experience, and then if you decide you want to do more, then you can. But like 2 grams is not going to, it's fine. It's no problem.
I have this like negative connotation associated with people that have done too many psychedelics, where they turn into like this hippie, like lovey-dovey.
Yeah.
Like, everything is like
yeah.
love kind of person.
Yeah.
I don't want to turn into that person.
You are not going to turn into that person. I did not turn into that person. I was, even though I was surrounded by people who were doing that, actually people appreciate the grounded person in that group. But yeah, the love mask, I call it, or the spiritual bypassing. Yeah, it's everywhere. I mean, this town. I mean, I love Austin, but it's filled with that.
Yeah. It's interesting. I saw so many interesting characters when I was walking downtown here, Austin. I've driven through here before, but I've never stayed this long. So, and really, I'm not even here for that long. But it's you guys have quite the interesting demographic.
Yeah.
Here, so.
Yeah. Well, I moved here from LA, and I was an actor for a long time. So, I got to get out of LA, but this is almost like LA 2.0. There's a lot of tech here, and then the personal development, transformational industry. I mean, there's all the, coaches, and they're all here. So it's a scene, and it's good. I mean, I love it. I love the people, but yeah, there's, it's like any place. There's a light and a shadow, and people are working out their stuff, and you find your place in it.
I remember watching you post videos of like when you were moving here. I don't know where you were going exactly, but what drew you here?
I didn't know where else to go, really. I left LA and moved up to Idlewild, which is a mountain town 2 hours outside of LA. Beautiful place. You get snow in the winter. Just outside Palm Springs, just like 5,500 feet up. I lived there for about a year and a half. It was perfect because that's when COVID hit. And I loved it. But I also knew, like, I'm a little isolated. And I felt it. I mean, I felt it. It actually scared me because I turned 50 up there and I was still single. And I'm like, man, is this it for me? Like, am I the single guy? Am I going to live alone for the rest of my life? Like, I got scared. And then the woman who owned the house I was just renting, she let me know. It's like, I'm selling the house, so you need to get out. Yeah. So I didn't want to move back to LA. I thought about moving to Idaho because I like the mountains, but Austin just made the most sense. I knew some people here. It was a small, big city. I mean, LA is so crazy. Coming to Austin feels like a small, manageable city. I don't understand there's traffic here, but it's like if you come from LA, like, there's no traffic here.
I've never been to LA, so I have no desire to go to LA.
Well, LA's amazing. No, LA's amazing. It's unlike any city you've ever been to. It takes a long time to understand it because it's so sprawling. It doesn't really make sense. Like New York City, you just walk around and you get it. You can get it in a day. You're like, oh, okay. But LA, it's so sprawling and odd. It took me about, I don't know, 6 months, a year to kind of go, what is this place?
And you were drawn there because of acting, or?
I went there, yeah. So I was in Toronto. I was an actor trying to make it. Went to New York very briefly, but then I got a job out in LA, and then that was it, and I was on my way. So I had a 20-year run in Hollywood, and I had a lot of fun, and I had pretty good success, a lot more than I thought that I would, and met some amazing people. I mean, I lived the life, right? I did it. Yeah. And, but yeah, it's like you get to the top of the mountain and then you're like, why did I climb this mountain? Is this the mountain that I want to be on? Like, I'm not actually.
Were you happy up until that point where I know you said you were scared when you turned 50 and you were still single, but like, were you?
Well, I'm somebody, I don't know if you're into human design.
Okay.
Human design it's a whole other thing, but I'm just generally a neurotic person, which is apparently, according to my human design, is what makes me really good at what I do, because I have what they call an open channel. Mm-hmm. It's very easy for me to attune to other people or to feel into other people. But that, of course, makes you a little bit neurotic, because for me, reality is very malleable. So it's very easy for me to lose a sense of reality, of what's real. Like I thought that's just what life is, but other people are like, no, I know what reality is all the time. I'm totally rooted in it. But, so, I've always been neurotic is my point, but I got to LA and I mean, it was fun. It was fun. I mean, I was working with interesting people. I was kissing pretty girls, movie stars, and it was going to parties at the Playboy Mansion, smoking joints with like Charlize Theron, in the back of some restaurant, like just shit like that, where you're just like, what is going on? Yeah. And it was a blast. But once I finally landed in it and was like, this is my life, there was something, I don't know, I was miserable. Yeah. And I couldn't figure it out. And that's when I I've been doing therapy for a number of years, but that's when I really started in earnest the work that I do now. I went to this workshop and that when I was 35, and it just changed everything. At the end of the workshop, it was a week-long workshop in Big Sur, California. I was just like, I want to be able to do what this person is doing, and I want to know everything that they know. And that was really the beginning of the end of my acting career. I didn't really commit to anything long term after that. I started in this program with this teacher, this woman, and which was a 4-year program. And I don't know. It's like the same thing with, like I was saying earlier with the Lakota. Like, I have no idea. It was just like I was here, and then I saw this thing, and I'm like, I want to just do that thing. I want to learn everything I can about what that is.
Do you miss it ever?
Once in a while, you know what I miss is just like when you're an actor, everybody kisses your ass. And when you're on set, it's just like, you can just like, can I get a tuna fish sandwich? And like, you get a tuna fish sandwich like 5 minutes later. That's nice. You know, everything's kind of taken care of you. It's good and bad. In some way, they treat you like a child. But my ego really liked the convenience of all of that. Which was earned because obviously it's an extremely competitive profession, and I worked really hard at it and was very disciplined about it and passionate, and super grateful for the experience that I had. I mean, I worked on the Gilmore Girls, which has become one of the most popular, beloved TV shows of all time. I mean, it's crazy. So people still watching it generation after generation. I get, people come up to me in the street. They weren't born when we started shooting the show, who are huge fans of the show. So that's an interesting thing, like, a legacy to be a part of. But it also feels like, it's like if you got divorced, it's like, yeah, that's my ex-wife. Yeah. Like, I loved her then. It was great. But you're like, I don't want to be thinking about my ex-wife too much. It's a little bit of that. Lately, I'm becoming a little bit more nostalgic about it. I'm sure as I get older, I'll become more nostalgic. But right now, it's sort of in the rearview mirror, and I'm kind of where I'm at, focused on what it is that I'm doing.
So you're doing the therapy all week, or like how do you spend your weeks here?
Yeah, I do a lot of work online. I do work in the studio in here, which is more somatic, so it's experiential. And then I do workshops in here. That's really what I'm most focused on, and what I enjoy the most is live workshops. So we do these here every 2 months, and I think we want to build those up. It's tricky because the work I do is very intense, and
I've seen a few. Yeah, I've seen a few intense ones.
Yeah, and so it's not something you can necessarily do in a group of 100 people. It doesn't work for like the Anthony Robbins. So I have to keep them relatively small and intimate. So we're trying to figure out, how to play with that, because we definitely want more people in. And then I do online offerings, different programs and things, teaching about the concepts in an intellectual way, which I think is helpful, because I think the concepts of the somatic work, specifically core energetics, that's what I'm trained in, I think are very powerful. It's a very powerful frame to look at sort of how we develop as children, how our psyches get developed, and how we can heal ourselves. But really, it's like coming in here and having an experience, a new experience of yourself. We change when we have a new experience of ourselves. New neural pathways are open in our brain. New possibilities exist that no longer existed before. And it's hard. You don't know something exists until you know it exists. Right. And so that you have to crack somebody out of the reality that they're in, which they don't want to do. They have massive resistance to that, to show them, no, there's something right over here. You just have to let go of this. But their ego, the psyche is like, they don't even know what that means. They don't know how to let go. They can't imagine that there's something other than the way it is, because that's the only thing they've ever experienced, which is why psychedelics, I think, are so useful, because you just eat the mushroom and then you're in it.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay, shit.
Yeah, your path of, well, they're kind of similar, going from acting to the therapy, because like in acting, you're creating different realities, and then you go to therapy and you're kind of unraveling realities and figuring out other people's realities. And it's an interesting path that you've taken. It's not so much a 180, I don't think, but it's really cool. I like your story behind that. So yeah, I don't know, going back to like the Austin thing, it's like, everybody always talks about coming here. It's like, maybe I haven't like experienced enough of it to be like enchanted by it. But yeah, I have a buddy that's like actively trying to get me to.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's been really, really trying to get me to move down here. It's like, I was nice. Like I'm in a good place. Like I can take my race car and just go to this Iowa backcorn road and just rip for a couple miles. Like it's hard to do that in places like this, unless you go like way out there. But like I'm in a really nice suburb area. I've got next to a Walmart, Target, and a Sam's Club, and I got my own garage. So I really like where I'm at. Plus I think my genetics are just made for the Midwest. So
yeah, exactly. That is an issue here for sure. Like we're in winter. It does get a little bit cold. But yeah, the summers are hot, like crazy. Yeah. And it's a vibe. Texas is a vibe. It's a thing. It's its own thing. It's different than the Midwest. It's different than the East Coast or the West Coast. But it's got its gifts. Austin is, I mean, it's a city on the rise. Yeah. It's a city where people are trying to make it, trying to, start their company, get famous. There's it's that energy of like, everybody wants to make it.
Seems like the new LA for sure.
Exactly.
My buddy, he was just like, you can meet a lot of people here if you just move your business here. And I really thought about it, but it's like, I don't want to go through the hassle of moving all of my stuff and U-Haul. And maybe eventually I will. But definitely running a sandal operation is interesting to do in Iowa, where it's really, really cold.
Yeah,
expect it to be happening.
Right. I'm sure you could sell a lot of sandals in Austin.
I think I've thought about Florida for a long time. I've always wanted to, because I was competing down there a couple of years ago. I was down there for a while in like the Tampa, Sarasota area. I love that area.
It's nice.
It's not as crazy as Miami and Fort Lauderdale on that side, but I do like Florida. I feel like even though my genetics are for extreme cold and extreme heat in the Midwest, just something about hot humidity that I thrive in.
Oh,
yeah.
Well then, maybe you'll dig the South.
Maybe
there's something to it.
I feel like I just need to try a different setting, because I've been in the same setting my whole life.
I see.
So just kind of experiment and just see how things go.
Yeah.
Really tying me to that area besides being close to my family.
Well, there's lots. You're a young, handsome man. I'll tell you, there's a lot of pretty girls here.
Yeah, there's the slim pickings in Iowa.
I bet.
Where I'm at. So that makes it tough for sure. But yeah, I've seen a lot of beautiful women here. That always makes things exciting.
Yeah. It's quite something.
How did you meet your lady?
Well, we actually met in an ayahuasca community. We met at a Lakota song class.
Gotcha.
But we were both in this community, and just she had a boyfriend at the time. So I'm very like, when somebody has a boyfriend, I actually don't even let in that I'm attracted to her.
Yeah.
Because it's just off limits. But she said that I looked at her in a particular kind of way. And I was like, I didn't look at her. She's like, dude, you totally like checked me out. I'm like, get a boyfriend. I'm just telling, I was like, I probably did. And then, yeah, they broke up, and we bonded over like the things that were going on in the culture, with Trump and COVID. We were both outliers in our community. Yeah. And so we kind of bonded over that. And then we ended up, getting together, and we just got engaged. And we're getting married in April. So I'm 54 now. Finally. I mean, I never thought I was going to be that guy.
Yeah. Happens when it happens.
It's fine now. I mean, it's all, but it's just interesting. I thought it's better than it never happening, which is what I thought when I turned 50. I was like, I guess I'm that guy, which was a little bit depressing. I went through a period of real despair around it, which maybe I needed to feel that. I don't know. Maybe I need to go through that and surrender something to create the space to allow her in. But I don't know if it's the exact same. I did not trust, because my mother had been married 3 times, right? So she left my father, left my stepfather. So I don't trust women. They leave, right? And so that was my issue. I wouldn't open up or really let myself get close, because unconsciously I was terrified that I was going to be hurt or betrayed. Yeah. And I could never let myself feel like I needed or really wanted a woman. So I always kept myself separate. And Diana, just, I don't know. I did a lot of work, so I was very aware of my patterns, and I knew what I was going to have to confront. But all that is theory until you're actually in the game of the relationship, and then it's right in front of you. And then, can you put what you've learned? Can you apply it? And mostly I did. It took some time.
Do you think is that why like relationships haven't worked in the past for you? It's because you didn't trust them?
Yeah, I didn't trust. I wouldn't let them in. Yeah. There was always some way that I was keeping them separate, all unconscious. Yeah. Or choosing women that ultimately I knew couldn't meet my needs or weren't quite right for me. Maybe there was a physical or some kind of sexual, some charge, but ultimately, that's a strategy to avoid intimacy, is just to keep dating people that aren't right for you.
Yeah. I still have that issue, just trusting women. I just especially with social media and like everything that you see on there, you're just like, oh gosh, this is how women actually are. And you always have some kind of male, alpha male kind of telling you how women operate, and you just kind of become pessimistic about it. And I think that's very
the red pill thing. Yeah. Well, that's a whole, that can be, you have to deal with their nature, right? But once, they're hypergamous in a way, but once they're attached, what I've realized, it's probably, you need to be with a woman who's very much in her feminine, which is what I ended up getting with Diana. But women want to be devotional. Yeah. We want to kind of provide and protect, and we want to, that's our way of showing devotion, but they want to show it's almost like almost a spiritual, that they want to give to the man in that way. And so if you can receive that, which is not an easy thing to do, like a woman wants to give you all of her love, like devote her, like herself to you. Yeah. That's a thing to okay, am I going to take that on? Am I going to receive that? I'm going to hold that? Because if you don't, if you push it away, or if or you don't trust it in some way, that's when they're leaving. Yeah. But if you can hold that, no, I think they're incredibly loyal. Yeah. I think they're not loyal when they don't get their needs met.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a similar experience with my mom, just because of everything that happened with the dynamic between my mom and my dad. And I was just like, oh, gosh, shit, all of us. And then this happens. And I'm just like, how do I ever?
So she had a child
with someone else.
With somebody else.
Yeah.
And
wasn't my dad.
It wasn't, wow, that's...
So that's why they split up. But yeah, from that too, it's just like, gosh, I thought, my mom and my dad were just like,
Yeah.
nothing, whatever happened with that, and then it happens.
Yeah.
I see women a little bit, like, that's me definitely generalizing there, but I felt like my view on women changed a little bit.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. And then, you have people like Rolo and everybody out there.
I know.
Throwing all this stuff out there, and it's easy to become pessimistic about male female dynamics.
Yeah. It's sad. It's sad. Like that's the way it's become. But Ajax got a good dynamic. Cernovich. There's a lot of good examples out there. I think. Yeah, I don't want to say I was cynical, but I wasn't hopeful. And I found an amazing woman, and it was completely different than what I thought it was going to be, which of course makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And it's work. It's work, but yeah, they're out there.
Yeah.
You gotta find your lady.
I'm optimistic.
They're in this town, man. I actually think the women in this town are like, I get the feeling they're very in their feminine, and I get the feeling like there's like loyal women here.
Yeah.
Like that they want a strong man, and they want to surrender to that man, and they want to be loyal to that man. I feel that with the women in this town. I like that because I didn't believe me. Yeah. I didn't feel that in LA. I mean, I walked down the street in LA, you'd see a guy and a girl. She's with the guy, and you get checked out all the time. Like when I was a young, handsome actor, girls would be like, staring me up and down while they're walking with their boyfriend. I was just like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't pick up any of the pessimism really. I don't think for the most part, but women are fun. Like I love everything. I love everything about women. But I'm not too worried about,
Yeah.
Or finding one in particular. But yeah, I think that did make me think differently about women. That what happened to my parents.
Of course.
But speaking,
was it ever addressed? Did your mother ever talk about it?
I mean, it was just her kind of recognizing what she did. She's like, I know I did this thing, and
did she explain why? Do you know
really,
why?
I didn't really pick at it too much. It is what it is, and I'm gonna move on now. And
well, maybe you should ask her.
Yeah, maybe that.
What happened?
Yeah,
just what happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think
at some point,
yeah, eventually maybe I'll have that. I'm not good at having this conversation.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I'm not good at like I like to talk about in like positive things in people's life. Like what's going good for you? Like what are you passionate and happy about right now? I never really pick those things out of people. But
right.
I'm sure it would help a lot more because I'm sure that's what people actually want to talk about.
They do, yeah. Yeah. I think that's what I find. I mean, that was the thing that, talk about the Tate interview. It's like, how did you get Tate? It's like, because he wants to talk about his emotional life. That's what everybody does.
Yeah. And
I'm the only one asking him those questions. And so it's, even though he doesn't believe in therapy, it's, And I think, I don't know how's it been for you to be asked more, I guess, personal, intimate questions?
I enjoy it. It's like, I don't know how to answer them really. Like, I don't think there's a wrong way to answer them, but I enjoy it. It allows me to think about things I don't normally. Because I don't really think about my emotions on a daily basis. It's more so like I wake up, I have this thing to do. I got to do it. It doesn't matter how I feel.
Right. So, which is great, which is the masculine imperative, and you want to have that gear for sure.